Good morning, everyone. So I hope you had a good night and a good rest. For us, it's a beautiful day here in Toronto, despite all the world wars that are going on, the kidnappings, the slaughtering of women, the Boko Harams. We still live in a relatively safe country with increasing crime and drugs and everything else like everywhere else in the world. And I give thanks for that every day, that I can wake up in the morning and see the sunshine and take a walk. I give thanks for all the blessings that I have and all the freedoms that I have. Some of the freedoms I've paid for, which other generations will benefit from, and some of the freedoms other people have paid for, other musicians, other artists, through their music, through their song, through poetry, through prose. So I like to go back and listen to all the old music, the music from the 50s and the 60s, and to listen to how the different artists sang the different songs, and so how some of them did it in an operatic way, others did it through rock and roll, but always the values come through in the music, and they also reflect the culture at the time and what was happening at the time. So for many of us, we grew up countercultural. So being a spiritual director is a good fit, because if you're going with the culture, you're going to collect all dirt on you. It's like the fish when they swim in a tank. There's no fresh water coming in. There's nothing for them to swim uphill against. So often they'll end up getting diseases, or they'll end up getting mold. They'll end up dying in that tank. And for us, we're like the salmon or the trout. We have to swim upstream. We have to be countercultural. And Jesus was countercultural. He did not just do things for the sake of the temple, for the sake of what the norms were at the time. He was very countercultural for his day and for his age. So as spiritual directors, we learn that. We learn about being countercultural, and we learn about protecting ourselves a little bit. We go into music as part of formation of identity, looking at how music forms identity, whether it's in gang culture, rap music, rock and roll music, opera music. There are certain genres where people come together, and out of those genres come your identity and how people live their lives. Punk, with their punk hairstyles and dyeing it in pinks and blues and all of that, it came out of a certain genre. So I love to go back to listen to the old music. Unfortunately, for many of us who are non-white, not a lot has changed. Even with our education and skills and experience, we still don't get the top jobs. We still don't get the good paying jobs. And that doesn't mean we give up hope. We keep pressing forward, we keep moving forward, and we do it against the wishes of the family if we have to. Because it's not their life, it's my life, it's your life. You make the decisions for you. And out of those decisions, your family will benefit if they are the right decisions. My family have benefited from me belonging to Blessed Sacrament since I came here, since 2007. Because people know I go to that parish, people know that I'm a lector there, they know that I've helped with the children's liturgy, with the Eucharistic ministry, with being available to help Father when he needs it. So they benefit from that because people know who I am. Just the way they benefit for me standing against taking a psychiatric treatment that I didn't need, because it was discrimination. They didn't give me a choice. They didn't say, Ms. Fernandez, you do have a choice. This is what our recommendation is, but you have a choice. Basically, I was threatened with arrest. So, I don't do things for the sake of the family. I'm not going to do it just to keep the peace. And at some point, you have to be able to make those decisions for yourself and use our anger to help the next generation. Because I grew up in a culture where women were being sterilized, women who had mental health issues, real mental health issues. They were born with mental health issues, or they were diagnosed as being schizophrenic. They would sterilize them. Or women would get married and then they would end up being beaten up by their husbands. And instead of the husband being sent for therapy or to get help, they would sterilize the women. So, women have not been treated properly in our communities in Zimbabwe, and I know that. So I'm always vigilant, especially now after what I've seen happening in Canada with, I mentioned that woman that got hit. And if Robert De Niro hadn't picked up on that and there hadn't been a camera, nothing would have happened with that. It would have just been covered up, and the police would have said, oh, we work in stressful jobs, and at the time he probably felt she was being aggressive. And she wasn't. She answered him very calmly when he said to her, get up and walk. She said, okay. And he hit her. He struck a blow to her head and she fell down and she bled and died. And the same thing with what they did with that guy that was traveling home in the US. Pulled him out of his car and hit him until he died, with their body cams on, making fun of it. I mean, some people are sadists. So, it's very hard when you've grown up with that and then you see it happening again. And you see how women's rights are being taken away, how women's options to have their children and keep them are being taken away. And they rather give those children to wealthy families. Is that all that matters? The money? And what about keeping the children with their mother? What about the mother who doesn't want to give up her child? What about the mother who doesn't want to be sterilized? What about the woman who doesn't want to get the psychiatric assessment done and who's been no threat to anybody and at any point in her life, like me? What about us? I mean, it's awful. You see all these women in India that get sent to live in ashrams, or they get told that, oh yeah, now your husband is gone, so you must be a prostitute. What about us? I mean, it's absolutely awful. And when you study and you work hard and you put in the time, you put in the effort, and you're constantly bypassed for promotions, for increases, for getting good paid jobs, I mean, it's discrimination. At the end of the day, that's it. I don't want people to shout at me and for me to be told, oh no, try to understand, just keep quiet, just don't say anything. For what? So they can do it more and they can become more and more aggressive and more irritating and think they can take their frustrations out on anyone. It starts with verbal abuse and then it turns into physical abuse. I'm sorry, I don't accept that. And even people who are happy for Camilla and Charles, I'm happy for them, because I was a Diana fan. I never supported Charles through the cruelty that he did to Lady Diana. I never supported any of it. And I don't support him and Camilla. Yeah, the pageantry and all that is nice, but for me, he's just a figurehead. That's all he is. They live in big palaces, they travel around the world, they do some charity work, all off taxpayers' money. So, I mean, for me, it's got no hold. I grew up in Rhodesia. I grew up with knowing that we were second-class citizens, that we couldn't go to the same schools, we couldn't eat at the same restaurants, we couldn't swim in the same public pool as the whites. We couldn't do anything. And we couldn't even have our black friends over. At least now, I can go out with my black friends, I can associate with them, I can be free with people. But I mean, it wasn't always like that for us. It wasn't always like that. So, I mean, people want to have their Indian schools and their Indian this and Indian that. I mean, keep it, for all I care. Keep it, honestly. I grew up in an integrated society. Yes, we eat our foods at home and we have our own languages. But even the language, if you research, go on the internet and put in Konkani, you won't find it. Because it's such a small dialect, it's not even carried on in the families. People don't even speak it in Zimbabwe. And even when we wanted to learn, they didn't want to teach us. So whose fault is it? You just move on with your life and you become integrated, but you don't forget about what they did to us. You don't forget about what they did to Winnie Mandela and to the women that they took into the stations and they raped them and they hurt them and they couldn't speak to their husbands. You don't forget about the Robert Mugabes who went to prison and couldn't go to their children's funerals. You don't forget about all that. And as for India with its figurehead women, give me a break. I mean, it's their own people that come here and tell me that it's a farce. And then now they're bringing all their gun violence and all that into Vancouver. They're coming into the country and they're bringing all that caste system with them. That's not the way it should be. They should integrate if they come here. And they should accept people as they are, not bring their caste system with them. And if they've got money, good for them. Enjoy it. Do you think that's what attracts women to you? You must be kidding. You must be kidding. I would rather have somebody with a good heart and good values than have somebody with all the money in the world. It holds no appeal. Do your money laundering, do your drug trafficking, do your human trafficking, and watch how God punishes you. It's punished unto generation, unto generation, unto generation. Even if it doesn't happen to you, it will come down into the 5th and the 6th generations. And it's in the Bible. That's why I tell people, if you're going to take your frustration out on me, God will punish you. Because you should do unto others what you want done to you. And I tell them openly. I've told people at the city of Toronto, I've told other people, and they go, what are you being angry with me for? I asked you a simple question. Why are you shouting at me and yelling at me? I tell them, God will punish you because I am God's beloved, just like everybody else. So don't take your frustration out on me. Because I've lived a good life. I haven't hurt anyone. I haven't done anybody down. I haven't gypped anyone of their wages. I haven't treated people with cruelty. I mean, what Charles did to Diana was cruelty. It's just absolute cruelty. And now they want to make it that, oh, you can just get married on a whim and get divorced on a whim. Don't get married. Just live together like that. Why you want to get married? That's a sacred act. It's a sacred contract. Anyway, our Christian culture has always been under attack, and it's always been a very small part of the population. The society is, I mean, it's not a Christian society when you have to wear a badge telling people you can wish me Merry Christmas. Really? I always wanted to go back to England, always. Because when I came here, it was like a culture shock. I mean, if you do the right things and you study and you're educated and you are doing the right things for yourself and for the people around you, why can't you get a decent paid job? Why are you always starting over at minimum wage? And please don't tell me, oh, it's circumstances. It's not. It's discrimination.